Hello everybody and welcome to an update video for tanks. It's been several days since I've uploaded last a raw dev game session, so I wanted to take a moment and talk about a few things that have changed over the last few days. Currently it is September 4th, 2018, and it was just over Labor Day weekend that I was able to make some of these changes. So, the first thing I want to talk about is, we'll go ahead and switch this over, is the name change, which you can see here. I have renamed the game from Tanks to Battle Tanks. That was a name I had originally come up with several weeks ago now, and I had initially thought it was a little too simple, a little too bland. There was an IO domain available, so that was definitely in contention. I was waiting to see if anything more creative could come up, but in reality, I'm thinking a simple title is better than something complex that is hard to decipher. So Battle Tanks, it has a nice ring to it. It is, and it's an accurate title for what the game is. So additionally from this, I was also able to get a domain, but not a domain that you would actually expect. It's something called a .app domain, which is different than .com or .net. Essentially, the TLD is .app now, and there is a lot of benefits from this. This is an offering from Google that took place in May of this year, which I hadn't even heard of. And essentially, the principle behind this was that they wanted a domain that isn't completely filled with, because the .com namespace is so filled up right now, it's very hard to find a domain. For example, Battle Tanks was taken on .com. So .app, it's meant to be memorable, and it's also meant to be secure. All websites that that you connect to with a .app TLD have to be HTTPS secured. So that also makes things a little bit easier for me because I don't have to work with an HTTP redirect on my Node.js server, which is helpful. It's been a sore point for my own personal website, dakotalesson.com, because it's, for whatever reason, it seems to have a little bit of trouble connecting from time to time. Now, additionally, there was also another very large update that happened over the weekend, and that was the move to TypeScript. So we'll go ahead and show you that now. So if you check out the GitHub repository right now, you'll notice that there is a branch called TS migration or something like that. And essentially what that is the move from everything, both client and server, to TypeScript. And there is going to be a lot of changes because of that. So as you can see here on the left, we now have these TypeScript files in source, which then get compiled into plain old JavaScript, which is different than it was before. So in the old version, never mind those player controls, we bundled everything together in one single JavaScript file, which was, a mess. Like if you look through, this is obviously all Three.JS code and everything, and my stuff was in there as well, and essentially it all just got bundled together. Now how it's working is a little bit differently. I'm talking client side here, of course. So in build, instead of having that single bundle, we now have a large set of JavaScript files which are component-based. These components, of course component.js, but also everything else, are loaded using system.js, which is a module loader that can be used in the browser. As you can see, I have the HTML page loaded up. So what's changed is instead of simply loading that small script at the bottom, the bundle, we now first reload our polyfills, which we always did because Edge doesn't support text encoding, or at least the one I'm using, or the text encoder rather. Of course, it supports encoding. Now I'm loading the system.js script, which is what this is, and then I am running my own script where I create a configuration to find the Three.JS module that I'm looking for, and then building the packages, specifying a default extension, then importing the base component, which is game, and then of course from there it loads all the other components, and you will, and I'll show this to you now because you can't view this in source. So you can see in here we have it registers these separate components, which are the imports that are in the TypeScript file now, and everything else is as you would expect. Every other components are renamed, of course, but it looks roughly the same as it does in TypeScript. Now, this change is meant to create a strongly typed language, because as the program grows in size, it becomes a lot easier to work with a strongly typed language instead of a weakly typed one, especially when you have, for example, JavaScript doesn't support enums or you know, any sort of typing or anything like that. So it makes things a little bit easier to specify a little bit more rigid, if you will, and it's, at least for me, I think this is a good step forward. So I also am really liking this component system, except for the loading of the 3 module. As you can see right here, I'm loading this 3.module.js, which is something that is originally part of Node modules, which is of course all the additional libraries that you can use to develop a JavaScript program. So I actually had to compile this manually and add it to the project. So in the build directory. So this is all done by hand, which is a little annoying. And this was the best I could come up with using System.js. The only other option that I could find was having to first use TypeScript to convert everything to ESNext, and then use Babel again, which I have now migrated away from, to compile Node modules and all the JavaScript code together, which I didn't want to do. I've had enough of that. So for now, we're going to go this route. We'll see how it goes, and it's a little shaky right now. It's definitely in development, but now that that's done, now that it's built per se, we'll go ahead and merge that TypeScript migration branch and continue on development with the tank movement and whatnot, which is what we're working on currently. So that is it for the client side, and now I will just quickly show you the server side, which is a little bit different. So in here, it's in here. So in your TypeScript configuration, we're actually specifying a different module loading system. Instead of System.js, we are using CommonJS, which so Node.js, which is the runtime that the server is run on, meaning that of course the JavaScript that I'm building runs on top of Node.js, which is a desktop runtime for JavaScript. That uses CommonJS to load modules. So in here, now we're using these ES6 imports instead of the require statements that we had before. But in the build directory, we are using require statements, which is CommonJS. So this handles Node modules a little better, of course. We're using WebSockets, the WS library in here. So you can see that here, or not, that's the map. You can see we're requiring that there. And this works really well with Node, of course. It's very much drag and drop, which is nice. But this does not necessarily work so well in the browser. So we're going to see if so potentially there could be a move from System.js to CommonJS if we can get something like Browserify or Require.js, which is a script that you can run in the browser to potentially load modules asynchronously like that. Because if I show you on here, we're going to go ahead and go back to the programming scene. Hold on just a second. Oh boy, where am I going? Alrighty. So as you can see here, I've got battle tanks on the top right again, just like normal. And in the bottom, I am going to put, okay. Yeah, so over here we have dev tools for this. So when we refresh this, we'll go ahead and clear this out so you can see what's going on. You can see all these scripts are loaded separately using fetch. So the style sheets are loaded, of course, and then we'll go ahead and fetching all of the JavaScript files. So this is important because it's using HTTP2, which is the new specification for the HTTP protocol. That is now going to that allows for essentially a faster load time using those modules instead of what we had before, which is which would be using HTTP 1.1 or HTTP 2 and just loading that big bundle, so it should be a little bit quicker, hopefully. So those are the updates from this weekend. Additionally, one last thing, the Trello board got a massive update so that you can actually have a decent idea of where this project is going in the future. Before, we just had a few things relating to the tank. Now we're going ahead and working on the next steps after the tank movement is complete. So after the tank is moving around, we're going to go ahead and get working on just the basic shoot functionality, where when you click your mouse, and based on the direction of the tank turret, it'll compute whether or not you've hit an enemy or not, and then handle that. And then we will be working on getting the match to finish as those kills are collected. And then we'll go ahead, so that would make a complete game rotation then, where you would go from waiting to preparing to playing the game with somebody, having a winner and a loser or something to that effect, finishing that match, and then from there, if those players are still in there, going back to preparing and doing the whole thing over again. So that's the status right now. So or at least that's what we'll be working on then. And then from there, we'll be working on other features such as sounds and music, being able to connect to a specific server, options, other things like that. Getting these other features out of the way too, and actually getting some features to the game, not just core implementation. So go ahead and have a look at this board. There's quite a bit on here now, so you can see what we're working on next. If you have any questions, just go ahead and reach out on Discord or leave a comment or something like that. So that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching this update, and we will see you in the next time.